Welcome to Module 4 of Patient Care Documentation and Athletic Training. And as we talked before about initial evaluations and SOAP notes, we're now going to talk about progress notes. And these are the notes that should and must be completed after every patient interaction or visit. Also can be defined as a patient encounter that we talked about earlier. And this is that abbreviated SOAP note. So this is the idea of what I was talking about in the previous module about how you go through and you talk only about the changes. So maybe reassess one or two of the common things that you saw and talk about some of the goals that you had. Within this progress note, it's very important to talk about the treatments provided and to see how they are getting the patient toward your ultimate goals. It's also important to see how the patient responded to the home exercise program. So those home exercise programs that need to be documented and must be within their SOAP notes allow you to see, hey, did that work for them? Did it not? Because you're not going to be with them when they do it. Also within these progress notes, you're going to have specific intentions for the next visit, as well as go back through the goals. So do you still have goals you need to meet? Have you met all of them? It is important that to note that remember, we talked earlier that if it wasn't written down, it didn't happen. And so we need to know that all modes of communication, including fax, email, text, whatever you have used, those all need to be put within the patient's progress notes evaluation, whichever you've done the communication for. Additionally, any canceled appointments must be documented. So if I have a patient who has a scheduled appointment on Monday, skips their Monday appointment and comes to their Tuesday appointment, I still need to complete a note stating that they had signed up for an appointment on Monday, this is the time, and they did not show up. If they call and tell you a reason for the cancellation, you can put that within the patient's work. Additionally, any changes in work or participation status. So those patients that are in, let's say, an athletic setting and they are able to start gradually returning to play, this needs to be documented. It needs to be documented what they could do within the sport and what they couldn't. And that translates to anything. If you work in an industrial setting and your patient is able to add some additional weight to what they're allowed to lift or what they're allowed to do during the day, that all needs to be noted. And the last part we're going to talk about is the discharge notes. And so I talked earlier about the cancellations. And so having worked in both a secondary school and a college setting, we all have patients who for some reason or another just stop showing up to their appointments. And so this is important that I have to discharge the patient at the end. That discharge could look like and say, hey, this patient has not shown up in 2 weeks, and so I don't know where they're at. We've tried contacting them, but I have no way to reassess the patient. This could also be a form of the patient is feeling a lot better and is able to continue on with just some therapy at their house, maybe a prevention program at that rate. These have to be included for every patient. If you do not have a discharge note for every single patient, for every single injury, that is considered abandonment of the patient. This should have information like the date of discharge. I talked about the reason for discharge, any changes in patient status, and again, this must be signed and dated. What I recommend is if you are at a school where seasons cross over, or let's say you're at a secondary school and you work with a patient from volleyball in the fall to basketball in the winter, I recommend creating a new SOAP note because there's going to be some time that there's lulls in between. It's a really good time to have a reevaluation for the patient and to be able to get back in and see where the patient is at beginning that new sport. And sometimes there's some different demands for the patient and some different goals. So it's important to constantly go in and refresh those evaluations and ensure that we are doing our best possible patient care.